What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to my channel again. This is going to be a lengthy walkthrough of all the upgrades I've done to my 2017 YZ250X. A lot of these upgrades are pretty generic, so you may be able to use them on your RM250 or KTM, whatever you're riding. Anyway, so I'm going to have in the description a list of all the upgrades and the time slots that they were in, so that you can just skip ahead to that time that I have written down. If you only want to do a few of these upgrades, you won't have to watch the whole video. So as a lot of you guys know that have been subscribed to my channel, I've been kind of perusing around, researching different bikes, just trying to decide which would be the perfect bike for me and which would be the most fun. And lightweight is a big thing too. Two-stroke, lightweight, those are two of the biggest factors for me. Suspension is also a huge factor. Also, the front brake. That's another big factor, because if they don't have that set up properly, like with the betas, where it can catch sometimes, that can be very dangerous. And I know how that is, because that's how with my Geo, it had a very touchy front brake when I bought it. And for the first couple of years, I had to really look out, be very finesse with that front brake, because one time it caught and I ended up breaking my wrist, and that can happen with the betas too. So you got to be careful. I know that the brakes and everything on Yamahas are 100% flawless, and the suspension can't really be any better. It's got KYB front forks. Those are what you want. I'd recommend what you do is research which bike you want. It may or may not be the YZ250X, but try and wait until the middle of winter. Hold out with what bike you have. Wait until the middle of winter. Go into the dealership. You'll be able to get a decent deal. I was able to get $1,700 off. And then you can use that money that you saved to put into all the upgrades on the bike, and you'll still have money left over, most likely. So you'll have the rest of the winter to finish upgrading the bike. By the time spring comes along and you're ready to ride, you will have the ultimate trail weapon to your preference. And it'll still be cheaper if you get a YZ250X. It'll still be cheaper after all that than a 2018 KTM 250 XCW, or 300 XCW for that matter. That would be even more. Anyway, the first upgrade I'm going to be doing to my Yamaha YZ250X is adding a skid plate for enduro riding. You definitely want to go with an aluminum one, because the plastic ones, although the big brands are using them now and a lot of people are using them, they won't stand up to hard use. You don't have to worry about it breaking through the skid plate. It's just that the skid plate will crack on the mounts. So it was $140 Canadian. Can't really get them any cheaper than that. The plastic ones are cheaper, but you'll end up having to buy one of these later anyway if you do legitimate enduro riding. Here's another look at the skid plate. It's pretty legit. Emperor Racing. Looks like it's got a hole for the oil drain. Comes with lots of stuff. So the first thing you do is attach this little flap from the other side with these two bolts. And I really like these little rubber spacer things that will help reduce noise for mounting to the frame. And so will these pads with adhesive on the one side. Those go on the bottom of the frame, I assume. I honestly don't know what this sponge is for. It's probably to help reduce noise. Maybe they want you to cut it up. Alright, so I got the skid plate ready to mount. You gotta have these two bolts loose for it to be able to click in. The foam is supposed to go in between the frame and the engine to keep dirt out, but I'm just gonna skip that because I want to be able to access my drain plug while the skid plate's on. These adhesive things, cut them to size, put them on the frame to keep the noise to a minimum and get your Loctite ready just to make sure those bolts stay tight. And I got these things already in position, the little mounts, and should be good to go. The Emperor Racing skid plate has been fully installed now, and boy does it look good. They thought of everything. So I decided to put some of that padding back here with the adhesive on both sides, since it was a bit tight there, and also I've got adhesive running along the frame up there. So everything looks really good. They thought of even the angle that the oil is going to be coming out of the transmission, because it's angled a bit, so they made the slit longer. I really like that scorpion on there on both sides. So take a look at this side. And so when you're tightening up those bolts, make sure you only do 2 or 3 turns at most to a bolt at a time, or else you could end up stripping one, because that's the safest way to screw it in when you're trying to make something really tight. And I use Loctite. So the next upgrade I'll be doing is putting on an FMF Turbinecore 2 muffler. They come with a spark arrestor, which is definitely mandatory for trail riding in Canada. And so all I did so far was remove the bolt on each side of the seat so I could take the seat off. Removed another bolt down here, took this little number plate off, and now I have access to the muffler. I just have to remove this bolt and this one, and I'll be switching it. And I noticed that my air filter doesn't feel like it's been oiled, so I'll take it off and make sure, because that's always something you want to check when you buy a brand new bike. So here's the two mufflers compared side by side. As you can see, the FMF is a tad longer, it's skinnier, it's much lighter, so you'll have weight reduction there. Yeah, other than that, not much of a difference. This one's a bit fatter, and it just pulled right out of there. There wasn't anything you need to loosen down there. One thing that the FMF muffler doesn't come with are these little spacers here. These rubber and metal, they have like metal inserts on them. You wedge the inserts off, the metal ones, and then you have to use a flathead screwdriver and push the smaller end of the rubber through. It's pretty hard with the bigger one. With the smaller one it was quite easy. And then you put it onto the FMF. So you're basically taking these off your stock muffler and putting them on the FMF. And just be a little careful to not shred the rubber, but it is quite tough, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Alright, so I bought this Moose Racing pipe guard, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it because it's too thick to form to your pipe. Like, it takes, I've been like trying so many different methods to try and get it to form, including like using a mallet, using a hammer, using a vise, using a screwdriver, wedging in the holes, using this to like bend it, using my hands, using my feet. Like, it just is too strong for you to be able to bend it properly. And plus, since it's straight, part of it is gonna have to bend one direction, like this end this way and the other end that way a bit. and plus bending it, each tip is like really hard to bend in. So I pretty much am at a loss with this one, and it's pretty expensive. I bought it because it looked higher quality, and that's the very reason why I can't use it, unfortunately. So I'll have to get a different pipe guard. Today I'm installing an MSR Hour Meter. It doesn't really matter what brand. The installation's the same on all of them. Basically, you got to take the seat off, gas tank, and I'm gonna mount mine right here. You got to find a flat spot that's visible while everything's on the bike, obviously. Also, you'll need zip ties, and you're gonna wrap a little wire around the coil there. I'll show you when I'm done. So I just finished installing my hour meter. It's very simple. Snipped all the extra wire off, which there happened to be quite a bit of. Probably enough to do a whole nother one. But so I didn't have to use any zip ties other than the one that it came with, but I did use one extra just for good measure. And also a good tip is to put some 5-minute epoxy on the tip of that thing so that it doesn't get corrosion from water. So that's not going anywhere. I decided to string it up through here. Goes around in there and then up along here and around, and the hour meter will be right like that, perfect, not in the way of anything. And now I just have to make sure the bike runs, and once that's done, then I can stick it onto the bike with the adhesive that it comes with. And the MSR one comes with a little hour meter logbook, so that's good. Shut this baby off. So just so you know, guys, the way I showed you was for 2 strokes, where you wrap it around the spark plug wire, and the way for 4 strokes is to loop the coil between the dust boot and the top of the coil. So there's how it looks. The final product stuck to the bike, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I received my Moose Racing radiator guards and realized that they don't come with all the mounting hardware, and you're supposed to buy Moose Racing radiator guard braces for them, which costs another $120 Canadian. This was $100 Canadian, which was like, it was iffy whether I would buy this or not to protect my radiators, but I decided since it's a brand new bike, I'll do it. And I'm not going to spend another $120 to protect my radiators. Another issue is that those radiator guard braces make it so that you can't have an oversized gas tank on, and I might want to eventually put one on, but we'll see. So I'm definitely going to try and return these instead. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is install some bush guards on the bike. I chose MSR because the inserts are reusable. Most brands don't have reusable inserts. So every time you want to change the grips or handlebars or take the bush guards off, basically, then you almost always have to buy new inserts because they're shredded when you unscrew the ends. So also I find that these stay in place really well and they don't allow your bush guards to twist. And these bush guards are cheaper than a lot of other brands too. Some of the higher brands, they're actually not as built as tough as these. So make sure your bike's on a stand, nice and level, so that you can gauge the bush guards and make sure that they're even when you put them on. The first thing you're going to need to do is cut off the tips of the grips so that you can put the inserts in. Alright, so I just cut the tips of the grips off, and on the throttle side it looks like the plastic for the throttle actually wraps around the handlebar, so I'm gonna have to Dremel that out. No big deal, most bikes don't have that. So okay, so I've finished Dremeling it out. I had to loosen this off so I could pull it out a bit and then make sure it was nice and fairly smooth in there and wide enough that I can push it in against the handlebar so that there's no friction, because you don't want any friction obviously, or else you'll have sticky throttle. This is what I used to Dremel out the plastic. Most of you won't have to do that. I think this is the first time I've had to do that on a dirt bike. So okay, I've run into another problem here. It looks like this bar, I didn't notice this, but it tapers to get fatter in the middle instead of staying the same width. So when I go to do this, just wait a sec, then look at that, it's not really working down there, and that's where I have to mount it really. So I'm gonna have to I guess I'm gonna have to grind that out or something to make it fit somehow. But yeah, we'll take it one step at a time, and I'm prepared for anything. Okay, so I finally grounded them down to the point where they'll fit the handlebars, and here's the difference between the ones that I grinded and the ones that I haven't grinded yet. That gives you a good idea of how much I grinded. I didn't have to grind the middle, but I definitely had to grind the sides out, and it still doesn't fit that great, but it fits like about 50% snug, which is good enough for it to be tight, because what you really need tight is the end of the handlebar. This part, the insert, is what matters the most. This part is just reinforcing it. So I can get away with it. It'll still be really tight when I get it done finally. So and this is I've been using these bits, and I was using a harder bit that wasn't like a rubber inside, that was just like a rock version, and I think the adhesive inside it finally let go, and it just shot off like a bullet, and I don't know where it went. So whatever, continuing on. Alright, so I got the bush guards mounted finally. I don't have the handguard shields. I'll have to wait till I make another shipment to get those, because they're not in stock right now, and they're not sold with the MSR metal bush guards. So but I got my everything the way I like it. The levers are a little bit lower than the guards, because you want them behind there but angled down a little bit more, because these also would be protecting your hands with the shields on, and you don't want them too low, or else they won't even protect your hands from like branches and stuff. Well, you want the levers pointed down a little bit more, because when you're standing up, then it helps make them a little bit more comfortable to use. So as you can see, they're in a little bit and down, so everything should be just perfect once I get those shields on, and I look forward to seeing how that'll look. And I think that since I Dremeled them down, I don't actually think they will be any less tight against the handlebars. I think it'll actually grip a little bit better, because certain places dig in a little bit, I noticed. So I'd say they're a little bit more grippy from them being able to come loose than as if they didn't get Dremeled. Alright, so I finally got a new exhaust guard. shipped in. Bought it off eBay. It's one of those cheaper no-name brands, but I like that it's black. That's cool, and it looks like it'll bend easy. It probably won't be as tough as the other one, obviously, but it'll be way easier to shape. So as you can see, I just finished mounting my pipe guard. I'm quite happy with it. It won't provide as much protection as the other one, but the other one was just too hard for me to mount. So I'm happy with this. Plus it's black, and it's really hard to find these in black. It'll get scraped up, but so will the rest of the bike, so I'm really happy with it. And the one issue is that the kit that it came in with these hose clamps, it didn't come with the big hose clamp. That one I had to use from the other pipe guard, the really thick one. And the kits, both of them came with 3. So since I had lots of them, I wanted to do 4 because 4 seems like the right amount. 3 seems like it's not enough. And so I just tapped it with the mallet a few times. I'd mount one, bend it with my hands, tap it with the mallet a few times, mount another, keep going down. Until I reach the other side. And I'm glad that it has this nice wide V shape, because if the bike lands on its side, that'll provide a cushion. And this pipe is really tough to begin with. It's designed for enduro, tied up against the frame and reinforced, so this will just provide that little bit of extra that I need. And so I'll show you it on the other side. It looks pretty good. Wasn't able to get it to go all the way up here, but I don't think it will get dented there. I think down here is more like where it'll get dented if it gets flipped on its side on rocks or whatever. Hopefully it doesn't get any damage up here, but that's pretty well protected since the frame comes out farther than up here. So, and this juts out a bit more, so that'll protect this area a bit. So I would recommend, but you'll have to buy an extra pipe fastener, pipe strap, whatever those are called, for the really fat part if you get this cheap one. There's lots of different ones to choose from on eBay. You can buy different colors and stuff. I forget what brand this is. It's like no name, probably Chinese or something. So it'll do the job. I have one on my KDX, a really old one. I don't know what brand because I bought it like that, but it's taken a lot of abuse and it's holding up real well. So I decided that I need radiator guards after all for the kind of riding I do. And apparently, like, I went on the forums, and apparently you can have a leaky, damaged radiator just from like a slow like wipeout, or from even just laying the bike down, like even going at a slow speed or anything. So then that got me thinking, like, I'm gonna need radiator guards probably, because radiators cost like quite a bit. So I decided to go to Unabiker Racing for mine, and they're one of the cheaper radiator guards, but they're also one of the best designed ones according to the reviews, so good value. They have them in black. They cost a little bit more for the black. I paid just over $150 US, like $152 US for these, and had to get them shipped. And they're still cheaper than most of the other options, which would be in total over $200. These ones come with everything. Most of the other options you have to buy the protectors for the front, and then you got to buy the braces separate. But with these, it comes with everything, so I like that. They have some instructions here. I've already removed the shrouds after removing the tank and seat, and they're pretty simple to mount, so this should be pretty easy. Alright, so I just installed the Unabiker front shrouds. So definitely make sure you use Loctite on every bolt putting these things on, because most of the bolts you won't be able to access. later, so if they get loose, it's going to be a serious hassle. So basically what you do, attach this one first with a really small bolt. It'll tell you in the instructions, but I'm just going through the basics here. Anyway, put this one on before you put the shrouds on. Then remove all the bolts on the radiators. Put the shrouds behind there, and you got to really make sure you don't pinch the wires that are down there. I found that this side like to slide down. Like you got to watch that hose too. It slides down over the hose. The other side kind of was like a lot easier, but it was like sliding up, I think. And so also these bolts you'll only be able to get in there with an extended screwdriver. But they're not bolts that come in the package, they're bolts that come on the bike for mounting the radiators to the frame. So put Loctite on those for sure. Stick the screwdriver in through here. Make sure you use a flashlight and make sure the holes are lined up before you put the bolts in, so it won't be too hard. Just don't be too forceful, you may end up damaging a wire or something. So yeah, not too bad. And then once you have that on, then you can put another one of these brace bars on with a small bolt and another one at the bottom on each side. So I'm moving on to these now. Alright, so I just mounted the side plates using 3 more small bolts on the back. And this side didn't line up for mounting to the front shrouds. So you're only supposed to put 1 bolt in before you put on the gas tank and everything on, I'm pretty sure. Gotta check the instructions, but anyway, the holes on this side didn't line up. So I'm gonna Dremel them through. I'm pretty sure we only need to do the top and bottom. So the Dremel didn't cut it, so I just used a drill. Had to drill that through, or else it wouldn't fit, because the holes that they made in these radiator guards didn't quite line up. Also at the bottom here on both sides I had to drill for that one, which is that one goes through the plastics. So, and also it doesn't say in the instructions, but that piece in there you need to install before you put the tank on, and it has 2 small bolts with that one brace in the middle to connect the 2 radiator guards. So that helps a lot, make this system more stable. Also I forgot, you don't even need to take these bolts out on both sides. I'd recommend loosening them for when you're putting these front radiator shrouds on to make it a bit easier. But with some radiator guards you need those out, and they have like a brace that goes through there or whatever, but not with these, so you don't really need to take those out. And so now I'm putting the tank back on. I won't need these. Good to go. Okay, they're fully installed and the bike is fully back together. They're looking real nice. And for mounting these final bolts on each side, I would recommend using the ones in the package because they're a little longer. So I mean, you could probably use the ones that were on the bike, but I don't know, I just decided to use these ones because they're a little longer and I wasn't sure if it would fit with the lock nut. But yeah, everything is looking real nice. I think these are going to really help protect my radiators if I have to drop the bike out there. So yeah, and also I want to just show you guys what I did with that old pipe guard. Oops. The Moose Racing pipe guard. It wouldn't fit on the YZ250X, as you remember. But my brother's CR250 check this out. It actually fit on there pretty good. Banged on it a bit with the mallet to get it to form, which wasn't too tough. This one I had to use 3 zip ties for because there was no metal piece big enough to go around the pipe there, because it's a pretty fat pipe, modification, Gold Series FMF. Yeah, this thing is a Mad Max bike, so it looks pretty good on the bike. Also, this part sticks out a lot, so I had to cut it down with one of those metal grinders, and then I used a Dremel to smooth out the edge, because if that's sticking out here, which it was sticking out to here, if that landed on your leg or something, that would break skin, break bones, who knows, like, just not worth having that. I'd rather have the pipe get dented instead of the leg get shredded. So yeah, actually that looks legit. So it depends on what bike you have, but also it's just, this part is just seemingly impossible for me to do that part. And that part needs to be protected somewhat if you're a hardcore enduro rider. But anyway, just thought I'd show that. I did put some metal wire there in case the zip ties melt or get cut, which probably eventually will, but yeah, it looks really good. So that's my bro's CR250. We got the YZ250X. Compared to mine, obviously not going to provide as much protection overall because it's thinner and it's not as wide, but I mean, the pipe's shaped differently. That pipe just goes right around like a U. This one you can see is like a bent U. Much harder to mount the stiff Moose Racing one on there. And this part at the top doesn't actually touch, but it won't really bend to like touch, but you don't really need that. In fact, that's more of a cushion now, and it's not touching anything, so the rest of it is all clinging on real tight there. So we're ready to rock and roll. The only thing left for me to do is finish adjusting the rear shock for my weight. It needs to be a little bit softer because when the guy adjusted it, he was like probably 250 pounds and I'm more like 155, so obviously I'm going to need it softer. Waiting for these bush guards still. I had to order them from the States, the MSR ones, because I already had this part that I ordered when I bought the bike. And the place I ordered those from no longer sells the plastic hand shield, so that was a real bummer because they told me they're going to restock them in April. Never did. So shouldn't be long and they'll come in. I also bought one of these muffler plugs for when I'm washing the bike because I haven't had to use those before because I'm used to using old bikes and half of them don't even have like anything in the muffler really. But if you want your muffler packing to last, then you definitely need one of these because if water gets in there, it's gonna shorten the lifespan of the muffler packing. Alright guys, I finally finished everything on the YZ250X. I've installed some Enduro Engineering plastic hand guards. They're about $30. I had to ship them from the US. It seems to be very hard to find these plastic hand shields that are compatible with the MSR bush guards now in Canada. But anyway, they look good on there. They're basically rebranded MSR hand shields. They provide good protection. They're very high quality, very tough. So I would recommend. Also, I installed some micro bleeders. You can probably see one on each side. They're made by Motion Pro. They're $18 for this bike, which yeah, that is pretty expensive for what they are, but I don't know. It's my first name brand new bike that I just want it to have like everything that it can and just be like, I don't know, I'm putting in the extra effort for it. So here's the package they came in. I pulled out the old little micro bleeders. When you install those things, make sure the bike's on a stand so the front wheel's off the ground, because you don't want it to release more air than it should. Basically, the need for these things is that when your bike's tied down or when you've been hitting a lot of jumps, your forks will build up pressure in there and they'll slowly become stiffer. And if you forget to bleed your forks for a long time, you can have a leaky seal from all the pressure and you'll have very stiff forks. So I'd recommend before each ride to unscrew your little fork bleeders, which normally look like this. They'll be on the front like I've been showing, and you might have to loosen your triple clamps if they're not at the front. The middle ones are for adjusting your forks. I have mine clicked out, I think 2 notches for a little bit softer. I'm used to really soft suspension, but anyway, just go by how the bike feels and adjust your forks by what you like the most. I haven't ridden this bike really yet, haven't broken it in, but I adjusted it 2 clicks out because I already know that I'm going to like it a little bit softer. Really aggressive riders will like it a bit stiffer probably. So yeah, those little Motion Pro ones, you just press the button when the bike's on the stand. When you're working on it, you just press the button on there and it'll release a small amount of air and keep your forks in tip-top shape, and so they won't be building up too much pressure. Also, I just adjusted the rear shock. I adjusted it, the rider sag, for my weight, which is 155 pounds. I've heard from a lot of different pro riders on the forums that you're gonna find the best balance of performance between 100 and 105 millimeters travel on rider sag. So that means that when you have it on the stand, you make a measurement with the rear wheel off the ground. Make sure you have a set point from here to somewhere up here that you can mark, or you can have it line up with a certain point like a decal or something, so that it doesn't change when you're on the bike later and your buddy's measuring it. So you'll set it to 0 if you have one of these. I purchased one of these Motion Pro sag scales. Should be able to get one from between 20 and 25 bucks. They make it a lot easier. I find that they're more accurate than using measuring tape, which I used to do it that way. They have this little rubber thing at the back for setting at the bottom into the rear axle or whatever. I also bought one of these Bike Master shock preload wrenches. It's an 80 millimeter. That should be about $10 or less online. I'd recommend fort9.ca for all you Canadian dirt bikers. So yeah, basically I have mine set to 102 millimeters. I don't know a whole lot about suspension adjustments, so I'm just going by what's recommended. I'm used to riding really old bikes like 80s Enduros with quite soft suspension, or Chinese bikes which have very stiff suspension. Also, I'd like to mention the YZ250X comes with a rear disc brake guard. It's plastic, but it's quite sturdy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. Please subscribe if you want to watch me ride in this bad boy. You'll probably like my videos. I'm by no means a pro rider, but I'm not too bad. I'm a pretty well-rounded rider.